Well, good morning.
Good morning.
For Shirley and Lou, Alana, this is part of the PNC. So Patrick, Justin, David, and I are on the PNC also. So obviously you can ask us questions at any time through this process. But what we had discussed at our last meeting was how to communicate what's been going on since Bob left. And it's been close to a year and a half at this point, and a lot of folks are kind of like, okay, let's get going. So why is it taking so long? And David, you can share of what the process was when Bob came. How long did it take from start to finish on that?
Yeah, it was 2.5 years. Can you believe that? So when you guys were around, he had left February, March, somewhere around there in 2001, and then Bob started October 2003. So we do the math, 2.5 years. So at this point, we're not behind.
Right. So it's a long process, and that's Presbytery's process.
But that's about average, isn't it?
I honestly don't know what the average is on. I'm not aware of that. So I don't know if I've got this angled since we don't have anybody on Zoom.
Yeah.
So so just wanted to show you. Actually, I'm a checklist girl. So I made a checklist. Okay, that's how I roll. So we have completed phase one, and phase one was personnel was calling an interim pastor. So they contacted Presbytery to find out what they need to do. Then they had to complete a ministry information form, and that's called a MIF. And you will see that terminology. We'll be using this until we get the new pastor. So in newsletters, things like that. So I'm giving you what the meanings are. So that was completed. They had to submit it to Presbytery for their approval to make sure that they, crossed all the T's, dotted all the I's, and they had thought of all of the questions to ask. So they did that. It was approved, and then it is entered into it's called CLC, and I forgot to write down what that means, but it's the database. That's it. Thank you. It's what's sent out to all. It's the database that ministers log into if they're looking for a call. So that was done. Then long process is here where they start receiving their PIFs, which is their personal information forms, basically a resume, and they start reviewing all of those. So that's where a lot of time is spent there because you're looking at a lot of resumes. So they got all of those. They selected some candidates and they interviewed them. They select that candidate to call them to serve as the interim. They did that. They had to seek the approval of Presbytery on that call. You just can't call somebody because you like them. They have to be approved. You call the candidate to serve, so you make it official on that. Complete the terms of call, which is, the contract part of it. And then IPC session approves the call of that interim pastor, okay? So that did not go to the congregation in a congregational meeting, right? It just was the session that I'm a checklist girl. So phase two, that's the mission study part of it. So the mission study task force that was created. And that was people volunteered to be on that. It was some session members. It was people from deacons, trustees, and then just congregation at large was on that. Then you all participated in the surveys, those little 3x5 cards that they did ask questions. We use that information. We have the community leaders forums, got their input of how they see the church. We also did staffing size, kind of see what the structure of other churches were. We reviewed 40 different churches on that, and Shirley was part of the mission task force also. Just thought to say that.
I just wanted to know.
She just, and you did contribute to it. So, but we looked at 40 different churches and how they were staffed, which was very interesting. Then we compiled all the data that we got from the surveys, from the forums, from the staffing of the other churches. Plus, if you remember, we did the New Beginning study back in 2016, which were all like in-home studies, all of that. There was a lot of good information out of that, and we compiled all of that to create the mission study report. So the mission study report was created, and also a new mission statement was created. The mission statement, I think, was about 15 years old. I can't remember when it was created, but but what was interesting, we still felt like the old mission statement was relevant, and it became our core values. So we have both. And actually, I did bring some copies of the mission study report, if anybody's interested in seeing what that work was. It includes the new mission study and the core values. So you got it's blue. If you want to see what that work was, there's a copy of it. So we created all of that. Then we had to submit the mission study report and the mission statement to Session. And Session had to review it and approve it, and they did. Okay, so they approved it. You'll see I have things that way because more checks are better than putting it all on one. So welcome to my world. Okay, so then the mission study report was submitted to the Committee on Ministry. Again, you will see that on newsletters and things like that. It's called the COM. Again, that's the Committee on Ministry, for their approval. And that was just approved last Thursday. Okay. And then, so that was on Thursday, that the COM approved it. That didn't hold us up on creating the PNC and doing the work that we needed to do. We had to wait for them, but it didn't hold us up on doing the PNC work. So, final phase. So, IPC nominating committee created a slate of candidates for the pastor nominating committee, which that's the PNC. The congregational meeting was held to accept the slate of candidates for the PNC, and also nominations from the floor it was open. I don't think any were nominated, so that occurred. So the PNC was approved and created. PNC has met with their Presbytery liaisons. They're helping guide us through the process. PNC begins working on the MIF, which we are doing, and by the end of business today, I should have the final edits on the MIF from the PNC, and that will be going then to our liaisons for their approval. So we've begun, and we're real close, like tonight, okay? That step will be done. Once they look at it, our liaisons, and the reason they're looking at it is to make sure we haven't forgotten something. Again, crossing the T's, dotting the I's, because you don't want to have it sent to our session, they approve it, then it goes to COM for them to approve and say, oh, you forgot something, or our liaisons look at it, and then session has to go back and approve it. We want it to be as streamlined as we can. So we're trying to get things moving. So session will approve it, and then COM will approve it. They are meeting the end of October, and that is when we are shooting for them to approve our MIF at that time. Okay. Then when they approve it, it'll be entered into the database again for candidates to look at. And the PNC has decided to have it open to the nation. We're not looking just in our part of the country and that. So we're hoping there may be some folks that are thinking about moving back to the Midwest. We don't want to eliminate some East or West Coast folks, so we want it open to the country. So then we're going to receive and evaluate the PIPs. And this is where it's going to take a lot of time because, you know, if you're looking at a lot of resumes, that takes a long time. We're guessing we're guessing we're going to have a lot. We have no idea the number. I will say when I was on the PNC for the associate pastor, we had over 100. So our guess is it's going to be similar to that. Then we will interview finalists, not just one person, it'll be multiples on that. Then we need to arrange with presbytery for the necessary examinations and approval of finalists because they may not be from our presbytery. Okay, so we need to make sure everything's in order. Then we're going to select our nominee. We're going to negotiate the terms of call. Presbytery has to approve the call. Then we want to present the nominee to the congregation for you all to vote on them. So they will probably preach in that. Hopefully you'll approve of them so we don't have to go back. But we will if we have to. Okay, if the congregation says no, that's our role as PNC. We will rally and we'll look again. Pardon?
What's this mean?
PNC, PNC.
PNC will be preaching it.
We as the PNC, we will continue on. Okay, so then we'll be signing the pastoral terms of the call for the new pastor. New pastor begins sharing in our ministry, and then there's going to be a party. So a lot of steps in it. And so do you have any, I went through that very quickly. Do you have any questions about the process up until this point? I went, oh my gosh, it's only a quarter after.
So when they apply for the position here, are they given like all of our stats of like how many people?
Yes, that's what the mission information form is that we are completing, and it has in there the size of our congregation. It has our pay scale, because if they want Quebec, I mean, this is what we can offer, and so so that's in there. Also, we have checked what the things, I forget.
The core competencies.
Competencies, yes, thank you. What we feel that this position needs. So it would be different if you were selecting, as we are senior pastor, preaching is important for this position, right? But if we were looking for someone that was Christian education or pastoral care, preaching is maybe a secondary thing. That we're looking more as somebody that has more skills in being compassionate or having those pastoral cares or being a teacher type of a thing if they're going into Christian ed kind of thing. So there's all of these different, I think there were 40 or 50 competencies that we could choose from. And you pick the 10 that fit this position. Yes.
Kind of speak to that because
Yeah.
I navigate it pretty regularly. And if you're interested, I can show it to you. This is the Church Leadership Connect login. So it's basically my understanding of it is similar to like a dating site for pastors and churches.
Yes.
And so every person has your profile. Yes, you're going to put up some of your best strengths. You're going to put up some of your goals. The more accurate you are, the more likely you are to connect with somebody that is going to be a better fit. So if I say, oh, I love scuba diving, but I've never been scuba diving, I'm probably going to be very unhappy, right? So if, as a pastor, if I say, oh, I think my skills are in meetings and being in charge of details, I will not be very happy in who I connect with. So in similar ways, since we had Bob for so long, a church then has to go back and update their profile. So once you're back in the dating pool, maybe you've had a couple kids, maybe you've started a new position, maybe you've gotten into some new hobbies, you update your profile. So we have now updated our ministry information form as who we are as the church. And so that you can either self-refer. So if a pastor is in the process of doing their search, I can look up right now and say, there's a little section that says opportunity search, and I can pick state. So say Mo wants to learn how to get a kayak and surf. I look in what's available in Hawaii. Don't laugh, I did that. And say you may have a position in Hawaii that's for a solo senior pastor, and it will have all of the information of what that church is looking for. Or it may have an associate at a larger church, or it may have a chaplain at the University of Hawaii. So any role that's considered PCUSA compatible, from Christian education director to youth director to senior solo pastor to head of staff at Fourth Presbyterian Church Chicago, it all goes through CLC. And for a candidate to be considered, you have to be in good standing within your presbytery. So Mo Wilson, the unordained, called from God because she had a Jesus moment at a Dave Matthews Band concert, can't apply to become the senior pastor at Irvington Presbyterian Church because she's not approved on the CLC. She hasn't passed her awards. She hasn't done everything she needs to do. We're very happy for her, and may she enjoy her Dave Matthews Band calling, but she needs to go to seminary first. So you can self-refer, and I think we'll get a lot of that. Like Kathy said,
Yes.
there were 100 for the associate pastor role. There are not a lot of associate pastor roles in the presbytery. There are not a lot of good, healthy, solo senior pastor roles in an urban environment. So I know a lot of people who are ready to take on a new challenge, who've been in roles, who may be wanting to get closer to home or wanted to get out of maybe rural areas for whatever reason. I think we're probably going to have well over 100 candidates. So that will either self-refer by themselves, or sometimes it matches. Like if you are on this CLC and you're currently looking, then sometimes it'll send you, be like, hey, the things you said you were looking for line up with this church that just went live with their MIF, and they are in Illinois. And you think, oh, I don't mind Illinois. And you can begin that process. It will involve several interviews with candidates. I even I've flown out to Texas to visit at a church over the weekend, and you spend the whole time with the pastor, with the MIF, like learning the community. So and that's later in, that's like when you're getting really close to making a decision, but it's very detailed. It's not just, we looked at their resume one time, looks good, check, 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 new job.
Right. Because then, and the other thing is we obviously availing ourselves of technology. So we have Zoom so that will help on candidates that are farther away, that we can have a conversation. And body language is a big part of communication, as we all know. And so just hearing the words, but not seeing the facial expressions, or if they talk with their hands like I do, or whatever it is, that's a big part of communication. And so to be able to actually physically see them, even if we can't be present with each other, is going to be a big help on that. And as Mo said, because it is similar to like the dating site, I would assume, I've not been on a dating site. To clarify that. With this, they will, potential candidates will also be able to see our mission study report. So they're going to see some pictures of us, and then what we tell folks about ourselves. So that's more than just the form that we fill out. We write a narrative of answering a few questions and that, but that's very limited scope on expressing who we are. So that's another layer right there, is that they get to read that mission study report to see what the church is doing and what their hopes and dreams are for the future. And then they'll also be talking to the PNC too. So there'll be a number of conversations with multiple candidates through this. So, and interviews and all that good stuff. Anybody else? Yeah, Luke.
I was looking here at the ministers, and it looks like from 2001, is that when this process started? Because there's a gap of
No,
2 years. The rest of them were just continuous,
Well,
it looks like.
I wasn't around back in 19, whatever, but no, that was the gap from when my code left to when Bob came, I think.
So yeah, because you had an interim pastor. These are the list of pastors here were the senior pastors.
Right,
Yeah, but his
and they
point,
replaced
right.
each other
Correct.
right back to back, the
Well,
same
if
year,
you
correct?
look, like Tom Hilton, he's 83 and code didn't start until 84. there's a gap.
That's the interim time.
If there's
That's
an
the time that
interim
we're in
time.
now.
So you don't list interims.
So but it was really concise.
Well,
Very
yeah,
quick.
um,
That way.
my guess would be the process has been changed
Yes, that's
and
what I was wondering.
refined and all that. So yeah, so if one senior left in 1938 and the next senior started in 1938, yeah, it wasn't 2 years, 2.5 years, was it?
I understand now what you're saying.
Yeah.
Back before, up until Howard Stone, when somebody left, somebody started the same year.
Right.
I'm guessing that's a Presbyterian change.
Right.
Technology.
Yeah, there weren't opportunities to
Yeah.
match things up on.
Right, it wasn't this to say, hey, you're looking in California, but you want to come back to Indiana. I mean, we're talking through the mail, through word of mouth about.
Yeah,
how
so
to-
my guess is Presbyterians, the having the interim thing has changed since 1910. That's an assumption. I can't confirm that with anyone.
And then, candidates, so your prospective pastors, they'll be looking at us too. You know, it isn't all just, you know, like, they'll, you know, the savvy ones, unless they stick their oar in the water and see how it works. I have preference. She has one, yeah, she's all part of that. You know, so they'll look, and now technology, you know, even, I forget when we had the IPC website, I don't know if it was around when Bob came, probably not. You know, so they'll look at websites, our website, see what's going on and all that, so that's, yeah, and then on the form, I think you kind of hit it all, like, you know, there are like the narrative questions, it's just a little paragraph or two, I think there were 5 questions on kind of, you know, who we are, you know, what's our values and that kind of thing, and here's what we're looking for and those attributes and those stuff like, you know, the budget, which you mentioned, and you know, CE, actually specifically what CE curriculum we use, which is timely because we just started, you know, Sunday school last week, so, okay, great, there you go. So there's all kinds of stuff in that form to kind of help those folks who might be interested to, you know, see what we're all about, so.
Heck, now they can even go and watch a worship service and see what, you know.
Right.
And we can do, and the PNC can do the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
To see how they, you know, preach or interact with the congregation and that. And obviously, you know, it'll, now with the technology, you can see every Sunday. Used to be, you'd see their best. But I think it's always good to kind of get in context too. But you always want to look at the best. We all want to put our best foot forward, but to look at the church, just to also kind of see, I don't know, just how the interaction is in the congregation, I guess is what I'm talking about too.
Okay, in the past, you would go, actually physically go to those churches.
Yes.
But now, is that going to be possible through
Yes.
Zoom or?
Yes, I mean, we would utilize Zoom in meeting the folks and that, but when it gets down to the final candidates and that, we will probably still go and
Even if it's California.
well, probably not.
Okay.
Although I would volunteer, and I think oh, Emily's volunteering too. So I guess we do have volunteers to go to California. Thank you for asking that question. That's important to know.
December and January.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
I don't know
I mean,
if we have to, I mean, I forget, I don't know if there's any specific, you know, I agree with you, like, if we can set up and see him in person, that'd be good, but I think
or she.
he or she, they, right, that's a good catch. Yeah, so I don't, you know, maybe we do, but then I don't think that's a hard pass requirement, right? I mean, wait, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
like with Bob, I mean, we got a cassette tape of like one of his best sermons, and you know.
It has been a while since we did
Even when we did the associate though, we got, I mean, we was basically, here, I'm posting this sermon to YouTube, go watch it. You know, a specific one, even, that wasn't that long ago.
No.
And those can be embedded into your pastor information form now as part of that resume as a link to.
Yeah.
But now you can go to their church every Sunday if you want
Right.
to
Right.
and like watch it. I
Right.
mean, because that's what you're talking about. I mean, when my mom was a teacher, I always remember the day the principal was coming in to observe, like, you know, everybody always put their best thing. And I was always like, don't you want to see the everyday stuff and how they perform, you know, but at least that's an advantage, I guess, in the sense now that you could just peek in every Sunday
Right,
and see what they're,
right,
they're thinking.
My principal never told me when she was coming.
Oh,
in.
that, hey, that's.
Yeah, Shirley,
Yeah.
you're on your toes every week. Yeah.
Never knew.
Yeah, so we might, but usually it's a neutral, like, I remember when Bob, he preached up at Faith, the one on Hague Road, Faith Presbyterian. So it's like a neutral site, so like we could go to Bluffton, well, for one, you don't want to do that, like, who are all these people? Where are you going? You know, what's going on? You know, so we may do that, or again, with technology, if we get a real good feel, you know, maybe if it's that person, he or she in California, you know, maybe we don't go there, I don't know. But that's what we gotta start figuring out, and the technology, again, is just, there's so much more availability to see, you know, who we're interested in.
Is there when you narrow the field down, do you go like, well, we have unlimited candidates, now we're gonna go down to 100 or 10 or?
Oh, right, as the PNC's meeting with folks or having conversations, the initial first one, a lot of times are kind of, you'll get probably not gonna be a good fit. I mean, you can sense that already. So it's already starting that funnel thing down. So, you know, you've got 100, well, you get it down to 25. And then you get it down to 15. And then you're down to the last 5.
So it's
And
kind of high.
there's no magic number. There's no magic number. It depends on the candidates. I mean, you know, it could be, wouldn't we be fortunate if we had a pool that had 50 fabulous candidates and we had to deliberate on, I mean, that would be wonderful if we had that many wonderful folks that would fit perfectly, you know, and fill our needs, and we would fill their needs and that, but you have no idea who's going to apply.
But we don't really have, quite honestly, we don't exactly have the process down either. I mean, I think it's gonna depend on how many, I go out and think of resume, but, you know, PIFs, you know, we get in and how they're gonna do it, and, you know,
Right.
It's just, I mean, that's kind of the nice thing about having a PNC, you know, we can kind of drive, even though we have 2 liaisons, you know, more than once, so this is your committee, you know, we're the committee, our church, our congregation, so we do have a lot of latitude, and, you know, and that's part of the reason why it probably takes a little longer to just have to.
But there could be more than one.
Oh, absolutely.
Candidate that you present to the.
No, when we present someone to the congregation, there will only be one.
I see.
There will only be one, that it will have narrowed down.
That's what I'm.
And yes, I didn't understand Julie. Yeah, it would only be one person. That would be, it wouldn't be the congregation
So you
choosing
hope-
out of 2 or 3. Yeah. No, it would just be one person.
It is kind of a rolling process as well. We'll be, you know, going live, starting to review these forms whenever we, you know,
Right.
publish or get
Sure.
active or whatever. But, you know, somebody may come in, you know, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks afterwards, even as we started to narrow down like the initial run of
Absolutely.
resumes. There's, you know, somebody starts looking, you know, January 1st for a new position, you know, that may pop up at some point.
Correct.
There may be, you know, additional candidates.
And with, to Patrick's point, is that we can be at different parts of the process with different people. So, you know, folks that we get early on in the process, then, okay, we've had phone conversations with them, we've looked at some sermons that they've done, whatever on that, and we've got some new applications that look good too, and so we're starting that process. So we can have people at different tiers in the process as we're going through. We don't say, you need to wait till we go to the next step, because what will happen then is we can lose out on a good candidate because they are looking for a new position. And so we don't want to be in our own way on that. So if there's somebody we're really interested in, we need to move along in that process instead of saying, can you wait 6 weeks while we catch up with it? Because we want to do everybody at one step at a time. We won't be able to do that. So we'll be doing multiple layers through the process.
Do we accept PIFs until we have filled that position?
Actually, people are still sending them, through at that point. Doesn't mean that we're looking at them. If we've pretty much figured out.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, you could do that forever.
I know.
But yeah, but no, once we're, and I think my experience on being on the PNC before is when you get down to the last couple of candidates and you're negotiating and you're talking about things, yes, it's great you're still getting your PIFs, but you're really not looking at them at that point. And what you can do is you can go into the system and say, I need any PIFs. If something would happen and you're starting over again, I need any PIFs from this date that have been submitted, and it'll pull from that date. So you don't miss anybody that way, if that would happen. So. I don't know. I can't tell you any more than that. I mean, at this point now, we're just at a lot of we just wait until we start getting the PIFs in.
Yeah, and then it kind of, there's a little bit, I think it was Justin said, well, it's gonna be a little bit of a pause here, or whatever, we said at last meeting, and yeah, because now we have to get that MIF approved, and that's could be right about a month from now, right?
The end of October.
So we can't even start getting it out there to get, the PIFs in until then, so, but it's still, I mean, the committee would fire up in August, and like, every Wednesday, we've been meeting, and last week, because we really wanted to get that MIF done, we were here an extra hour and a half, I think, from our normal time, just polishing it up and getting it all, like the best way we could present it. So, yeah, so there'll be a little break, if you will. We may not meet for a couple of weeks. We might, I don't know, but if we don't need to meet, we won't. But,
Right.
But again, it's churning along, and the outside ruling bodies that have to approve all this stuff will have a say on it too.
I will say this, because most of the PNC is here,
Yeah.
is that we probably will meet just to start working on the questions to start asking candidates.
Yeah.
So that because then we will have a list of questions that we ask every candidate. So we are comparing apples to apples.
Yeah.
And that, because you don't want to get in a conversation and you don't, it's not fair to everybody then if you don't ask the same questions to everything. So that'll be the next thing, the PNC, but that's on my personal checklist. I didn't put on there, so.
Well, you have to realize that session only meets once a month.
Yes.
Does COM meet once a month?
No, because they're not meeting, they don't meet in November, they meet again in December. That's why we are pushing to get on their October
So that's a good part of why it takes so long.
Yeah. So.
In our session, we can, and we might actually this time, we might have a call,
Yes.
a call meeting, whatever, an ad hoc meeting, get in here and, and we have.
And that is what's going to occur, is that there will be a called special session meeting once we get the thing back from our liaison saying, yes, you're good to go. So that we're timely. And that we don't want to wait till the session meets the 4th Tuesday of the month. We don't want to wait that long. So that's where we are.
Well, I'm amazed. I had no clue anything's going on. Thank you for everybody. Into this. This is
Yeah.
Excellent. Hold on. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
she's coming. Okay.
Yeah. So anybody else have any other? We still have lots of time. Or, how's your weekend? How's yesterday?
Go Colts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder how you had time to work.
Well, it's just, I'm getting to do all the things I've always wanted to do. So
Okay.
it's all because I love being busy. So,
Well, I know you are. There's no question about that.
And I'm retiring at the end of the year, so I'll be joining Kathy.
there you go.
Congratulations.
Yay. Yeah, well, David's retired too,
Yeah,
so.
last December.
So.
Wish I was
Justin,
there.
what are we doing wrong?
But I know.
You're younger than me.
Yeah.
You're
younger than
The youth shall work.
Yeah. Enjoy it while you got it. Yes, please.
Just to be on the highlighted side, I can picture the finalists, maybe 3 of them, in a Jeopardy-like Answer these questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Well, this is off the subject, but I was so excited about the trivia game on Saturday.
Yes,
Yeah, apparently, how many teams were there?
was there 5 or 6?
5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah.
I think at least that's like, we had 6.
Mhm.
That is, were they mostly
It was all.
all
Yeah.
Irvington, nobody else?
Uh-uh.
Oh, shoot, I went into those places where the tattoo parlor. where I thought there-
Oh, okay.
I went into those places and I thought, sure, there were a lot of people.
Sure.
And they were, but it's Saturday morning. I mean,
That
one of
was,
the guys,
yes.
one of the guys told me, I said Saturday morning, and
Yeah.
because the first question I asked was, do you have geeky people who come in here? And I invited them, I said, we even let tattoo people come into our church.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's, maybe if we did it at night, there'd be
Right.
more.
Right.
That was pretty good though. It was over $1,000
Yeah.
on a Saturday morning.
Right.
But I've got a team and I missed it, so.
Oh, okay.
So here's one, it's just funny, so one of the questions, so let's see, well, I'm pointing to you two, not me, and see if anyone wasn't there. Like, what's the national animal of Scotland?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, my team got it wrong, so don't.
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
push
me too.
yourself.
Yeah.
National
Animal
animal
of
of Scotland.
That was probably the winning question, the one that
We
won.
won't
My-
live that one down.
My children got it right, but it wasn't the answer we got on the paper.
So Mike would put like lion.
That's what we
Scottish
wanted,
lion.
was lion.
Well, anyway, so the
I would
answer,
say a goat.
well,
It's a
unicorn.
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 Oh.
So anyway, now fast forward to yesterday, I went with one of my kids up to Purdue's homecoming, and we went in his frat and all that, and I have to use the restroom, and they had, it's really kind of cool, like, just facts on a piece of paper on the wall, and one was like, I don't know, like, the letter J isn't, in the periodic table, nothing
Right.
against a J, I've got some letter, so it's just really
It
kind
is
of.
J that's not on the periodic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's no word in the English language either that ends in a J.
Oh, okay. Well, so it was really good. And then I'm reading down one of the 20 facts. The national animal of Scotland is the unicorn. Why the heck wasn't that right?
Right?
When
2
we go
weeks
to
ago.
Saturday before, I wasn't
Yeah.
right on that.
It's always ironic when those things show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twice,
Yeah.
you're like,
Right. Yeah.
Yes,
I mean,
that's funny.
who would have thought? So-
Yeah.
Oh, who else? There's 6 of us here in the PNC, and then just Melissa Jester, who's beetling, so
Yeah.
she's beetling around. Frank Curtis, who's
In Canada.
camping in Canada. So
Oh, wow.
For 2 weeks.
Wow.
So I'm gonna get in and out of it before the snow flies.
And Sherry Patterson.
In Charity, yeah, Charity
Okay.
Patterson. Wow. So anyway, it's a good group, and Lou, to your, you get it down to one candidate, or do you have a few? And no, it's went to the congregation, but I know it works this way every time as a committee. There's 9 of us, and whoever we come up with, it'll be the right person. There won't be anyone on the committee, because we'll talk through that and make sure it's the right candidate, the right person, and so when that person gets presented, it's a great committee, really good people, and yeah, so it go well.
Should go well.
Yeah.
It just, once we submit the paperwork, then we're in the long. And just the long, work is happening, but there's no check marks in that time for me.
You'll make it.
I know, well, yeah,
It'll be
it will be, so, yeah, but there's no checking that off, so.
I have 20 minutes. I'm gonna go make some
Perfect.
text. I got these text messages, so I can answer.
Okay, very good, so.
Everything that happened in the second
I know.
phase, and it's like, I didn't know that your view staffing in other churches.
Uh-huh.
Ugly Purdue game last night.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's been a lot of work
I know.
We
done.
didn't watch the Indians game.
Oh, it's the last game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we weren't gonna work on Friday
Yeah.
night, so we're trying to go borrow flex.
Yeah, right.
It gets so long.
And last night was
Do you know
Anyway,
Presbyterian's
they had fireworks again, we're like, oh, it's on
philosophy,
Friday, night,
theory,
we won't stay that long, we'll go home and
in
go
our
Purdue game, but.
process?
Yeah, they had
the
like a dinner
reasons
thing
for
for
going
his
to that
work.
Oh,
and
that's-
My
everything. So we were
understanding
there till like
because
anyway to like the 7th.
especially when you had a
Yeah.
But
beloved
when we left, it
pastor.
was
But also
just
can be
starting
if there's
the
been a
second
troublesome
half. That's where I
pastor
started.
too. They want the gap there,
Like I
so
go,
Yeah.
I
you
stop on
don't
every
have
corner.
to
Immediate
go
time
that
out, you know,
Yeah.
it's just crazy.
And
you
if
know.
you're not doing it the way
I guess
so-and-so, I'll do it this way. God would, that's not the way he would have done it.
Yeah.
It's not the
Just
way
like-
she would have
I
done
thought
it.
that, and I'm like,
And so
miserable
it gives
to
a
get-
Yeah,
chance for the
Well, like,
congregation to
Yeah, like I said,
start
it was a long day.
opening up
'cause
their head
we were up
of
in-
new possibilities.
You know, Chris, one of my
Does it
sons,
have to
you
take
know,
this
we'll
long?
go,
I
and
don't
then it
think
was
so, and I
nice, so
really
he
think
has a parking
probably,
house on the golf course,
Mhm.
so it's
Transient
really,
is
really
pastors
pretty
are
there.
because
Yeah.
So we'll get up there around
may
noon.
not
I
stay
said, "Man, why
someplace
did you
20
get that early
years.
for?" No, it's not coming. And so
5
I'm
to
driving
7
him up
might
with
be
buddy.
typical
Well,
if
let's
you're
go
lucky.
to a chocolate shop.
So
It's
I
like,
think
you know,
the process is
I'll
gonna
do
have to
things now.
change, because if
But I
you're
said,
looking for a new
I'm not
pastor
going to
every
chocolate
5
shop.
to
That's
7
just
years,
not,
and you've got to
you
choose
know, I'll
your
take my
period.
risk and all that.
It just can't happen that
But
way.
anyway, the,
No. And then it's like,
around,
look at the
"Well,
rest
I'll
of
drop you guys
the
off.
Yeah.
When I can,
Yeah.
you know, it's fine.
Well,
And
seriously,
the line
that's
was
what they
really
might
long,
think of, like,
so
oh my gosh,
we didn't
what's wrong
do
with
that.
that
We went
church?
to the, Union. Have you
5
been
to
in that
7
Union
years.
in the
Yeah,
last?
you
Well,
have
but I-
somebody-
Not the past
Yeah.
couple of years.
I mean, the
So, you know,
hotel is
I
all
think
done over,
that's
the
the
lobby,
area of it, and I
it's
think
really
there's
nice,
validity
you know, and they have a couple
to that, of
eating
giving
bar
them some
areas
time,
that,
yeah,
space
so we
to-
ended up
And then
getting
also,
lunch in
especially
one of
after
those
20-year
places and then
tenure,
went
1
over
year,
to the
20-year
frat house for a
tenure.
little bit.
It's
and then
time for the church to look
did
back
the,
on what it's
did
doing
the
and
dough
say,
day. So
is that
it's
still
nice.
relevant? Do we still
And
want to do
again-
Yeah, I need to
that
look
as far
and
as
see
our
if
mission
we
work and stuff? And
try to
just
get up
because
there
we've
for
always
one.
done it
Yeah.
doesn't mean we
Oh, it
should
is.
Go
It's
to the day.
an afternoon game.
So it's a good
Yeah.
time to
Yeah.
reflect on and know,
Well, my.
it was
my
great
brother's
while we did it, but it's time for something new, or there's a new
like, you know,
idea,
after
and
the
it
game,
gives space
walk
for that.
around and reminisce.
I'm almost like a little,
Yeah.
I'm guessing if you had a 5-year pastor, the process would be faster
Correct.
than someone.
That's my understanding, it wouldn't take as long that way. Yeah. So I think that was, you know, COVID was here for a number of years, and that there was kind of some things going